is a great pleasure and an honor.
Now, you're known as a percussionist, as a composer, one who goes over borders, and you're known as one of the most prolific jazz explorers of your generation.
Well, the kudos to the opportunity to express oneself and have freedom of choice is a blessing, and I owe it to my parents. They raised me to be a free thinker and to desire adventure and not to be afraid of risk.
Yes.
And so it's been a heck of a journey.
Now, you're an impresario. You do everything. You do it all.
Except I don't know how to work in the electronic equipment. But
well, let's talk about design.
Okay.
And this outfit is amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Designed this.
I have loved fashion my whole life. My mother owned a bridal business on the South Side.
And you said that's how you started out, sewing.
Yeah. And you know, I love art. I love music. I love dance. I love fashion. I love visual art. I love writing. I feel really blessed to be a part of a worldwide creative community who desires to express something of value to, you know, our societies. And when I was growing up in the 60s, it was really an exciting place to be an artist because you represented a voice of freedom. And so I've looked at this as an honorable mission, even though sometimes it kicks your butt.
Right. Now, you started out sewing. How did you get into playing?
My father was an amateur drummer, and he really loved jazz, and he really loved to play, but he couldn't make his living doing it, you dig. And my uncle, Leroy Finch, was a professional drummer who had played with Charlie Parker, with Fats Navarro, with Dizzy. And so as a child, I was always around music and the influence of that. But I didn't really think of it.
What types of music?
Like, you know, I went to Mount Carmel Baptist Church, and so the minister of music was Ramsey Lewis Sr., and the piano player was Ramsey Lewis Jr., and
growing up on Chicago's South Side, there is this Chicago sound in different areas.
Absolutely.
From blues to jazz to
absolutely,
pop.
Absolutely. And so we grew up, we had to play it all. Today, you know, things are in categories. But the way we looked at it is that this is how we socialize and how we entertain, and you had to be good at what you were doing because you had a really intelligent, critical community with a lot of love that was looking for the groove.
There's a whole history.
Yeah, you know, and so, you know, I mean, I grew up listening to gospel, as you said, to blues, to jazz. Then there was the avant-garde, people who were trying to find abstractions in the culture, if you will, an intellectual pursuit to the cultural legacy. And I kind of fell in love with in fact, I was working with Paul Simon, right? And this guy named Muhal Richard Abrams from the AACM, the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians. He hit on me to play with him, you dig?
And you started playing with them when you were 18 years old.
Yeah. And so my father says, how's that gig going with Paul Simon? So I said, Daddy, I quit. He said, you what? You quit a $1,500 a week gig? I said, I'm working with a genius, Muhal Richard Abrams. We're working on the avant-garde. He says, well, when do you all work? And how much you get? I said, well, we make $50 and we work only on Sundays. He said, son, you couldn't have kept both gigs? And I was like, I guess I could.
You're following your heart, your passion.
Following my heart. Following my heart.
Now, it was in your coming of age in the 60s that African Americans, black people, were discovering their roots. And you decided to discover your roots in Africa. You studied in Ghana. Yeah,
I had gotten a musical scholarship to Lake Forest College. And one of my mentors, the late, great Dr. Duke Jenkins, who was head of Black Studies at Northwestern, I had told Duke, once I got to Lake Forest, I said, man, I'm getting ready to go to Paris to study pantomime with Marcel Marceau. He says, well, what do you know about pantomime? He said, why don't you're a drummer. Why don't you see if you can do an exchange in Africa? I'll set it up. And he spoke to Professor Nana Nketia in Ghana, and we took the money that was supposed to go to Panama to do the exchange program in Ghana, and then I've been like 8 times, since. That was like 1972. But it opened me up. It opened me up rhythmically. It opened me up philosophically. It opened me up in terms of traveling. I think is important for all young people, so that you see different ways that people express themselves, then incorporate in yourself a broader sense of your self-expression. I wasn't used to people, in the face, talking so close, and it changed. It just changed my groove, and I came back. And I told my father, I said, well, I'm going to do a group with no piano, no bass. He says, why are you going to do that? I said, I don't want to be in the Western harmonic system when I develop this music. I want to be in what I've learned in Africa.
So the first time you showed up with a drum, a couple of saxes, no piano, no bass, what was the reaction?
The band was scared. And then people were like, it's like we did the Apollo. And Cosby introduced us, and he goes, where's your band? I said, this is my band. You gotta be kidding. It's just a drum and a little saxophone, and that's not a band. And and I've gone through that. But when we hit, we got rounds of applause, and afterwards Cosby was like, what kind of music you call this? I said, well, this is creative jazz. And he's become a fan of my music since. So
at that point, you were challenging what jazz was made up from.
What's crazy, Regina, is still going on. I mean, after 45 years, and the band, the Ethnic Heritage Ensemble, we celebrate this year our 40th anniversary. People are still somewhat surprised by it being different than what we usually associate how music is put together. And you have to be optimistic. You have to maintain your energy and your ideals. And you have to just know that what you're doing has value. And now I've lived long enough where people are coming back and saying, we appreciate that you took this different kind of journey, and we kind of feel and hear what you're talking about, and that it's relevant. And so I'm very thankful.